So basically, I was born in Carson City, Nevada, and when I was a baby, like 8 months old, I was moved to this area right here, actually, like the Greenwood kind of area, and then from then on, like Edmonds, Mount Lake Terrace, Snohomish County,
The
Everett,
greater Seattle area.
Yeah, exactly. All the outlying cities around Seattle. I've lived in Auburn when I was a kid. I bounced around quite a bit, and so yeah, my story really the roots of my story start in like South Everett. I went to Silver Lake Elementary School. I went to Gateway Middle School, and then I went to Cascade High School.
And growing up, was it just you were the only child?
So I have a stepsister. Her name is Kelly, who I love very much, and I'm still in touch with her heavily. And so her dad pretty much became my stepdad when I was a toddler age, and then him and my mom split up. And then we got reunited when I was about 15 years old. He came back into the picture. They reconnected somehow. They found each other online and got back together. And then my sister Kelly came to then live with us all.
Gotcha.
So the four of us lived as a happy family, reunited, all in the same house for about 5 years or so. And then we all kind of went our separate ways again a little bit. And then we all reconnected again a couple years later, and then did the same thing, just kind of went our separate ways, and that was around the time when I first became homeless.
Well, we'll get there, but I'm curious, what's happening in high school?
In high school?
What were you doing? Any hobbies?
So high school. So, man, I was gonna say I was a high school dropout.
Okay.
I was enrolled in school for just the sake of the legal factor of it, but man, I moved to Marysville when I was to start freshman year. Like before it started, I went to maybe like 2 days of school at Marysville Pilchuck High School, and then I was enrolled in sophomore year, right? And maybe went to like a month and a half or so, and I just had a real bad truancy problem. But that really started around like 7th grade, like middle school.
And why was that?
It was a combination of anxiety and just it wasn't any specific thing that was contributing to that, like in terms of like having like a bad environment at home or anything like that, or anything unhealthy. It was just natural disorders and stuff like that hadn't been addressed, because I just didn't, I didn't get around to speaking out enough about the fact that I was experiencing, like maybe I had like ADHD or something like that, you know what I mean?
And it would come out in anxiety and just
and then I felt like I had to go, It's not like I didn't want to be there. I love school. I love learning. I love anything curricular like that, activities and stuff, structured things. I love it, right? But for whatever reason, it was just hard for me to stay committed to being in school that long at it every single day.
Like the whole day, throughout the whole week. It is a long.
It would stress me out, and it's because, and if I think
full-time
back,
job,
right. And so what happened was I started doing drugs around that time,
just to cope with that anxiety.
And once I started doing certain drugs, like amphetamines and stuff like that, I was like, whoa, this is what I've been missing. Now I feel like I can just sit here, and I feel like I could sit at school all day long and just be chilling. You know?
Let's stay there for a little bit. Like the feeling was, I feel like myself almost, like I'm comfortable,
leveled out.
Like even, calm. Like
I didn't feel like I had to move on to the next thing already or something. I didn't feel rushed. I didn't feel pressured. I felt like a sense of ease, like there was no pressure on me in the room, and yeah, man, really, like I feel, so that's what makes me think that maybe I had some kind of like either like ADHD or like maybe some like bipolar too in there or something like that, you know.
And I've never talked to anybody about any
of that. No, until I was an adult and in you know, recovery, and talked to like some CDPs about that, you know, in treatment. That's the first people that I ever talked to. Yeah.
You hear that.
Other than my school counselor in middle school, which is why I say I kind of dropped out of middle school, because she actually put in for a court order for me to have half days for the rest of 7th grade. Like about a quarter of the way in, I was like, I had lunch after 4th period, and I either could stay and eat lunch and then leave, or I could leave right when lunch started. But I had to leave school campus. I couldn't be on the school.
Oh, you couldn't even be there.
Yeah, because it was because you know, like when you're truant from school and you're a kid like that, it's like either your parents have to pay money, or you know what I mean. Your parents have to pay those fines for you missing school, right? Yeah. So, you know, and it makes sense because it's like, okay, well then you're contributing to the instability of our economy if you're going to be having all these kids that grow up to not work and have jobs and stuff. It's like, that makes sense to me.
But you're saying that started that pattern of okay, I'm now leaving school early, and eventually just taper off to now I'm not even going to school.
Right.
You utter kind of
exactly. That's what exactly happened.
It was like an on-ramp to that in a sense. And when you didn't go to school in high school, like,
and it was easy for me to not do it because of the fact that there was reasons why, and it was like there wasn't anybody on the outside being like, hey, you know, disagreeing with it, because it's like I had that professional help on my side to vouch for, you know.
And when you didn't go to high school, what did you do?
You know what? I sat around in an empty house, empty 850 square foot house in Marysville, just by myself, just kind of like, I had a laptop. I used to play like games and stuff online and stuff. I got enrolled in an online school at one point, and it was called Insight Online, and I was doing that for a few months, but I didn't finish that all the way. I attended Everett Community College to get my GED when I was 16.
Oh, gotcha.
And I went to like where you go, and now you can just go and just do the test, right, if you want to. But I went there and did like the classes, like the school and stuff, for like quarterly, you know what I mean? And then you take the test when you're done, right? And so, dude, I went and stay committed. But around that time, I was using drugs too, you know, like hard drugs, you know. So like, I started kind of falling off towards the end of the school year, the trimester, right? And then when it came to take the test, I remember showing up to take the test, and then I just like barely didn't pass, and then I just didn't try to do it again. I could have went and just retaken the test and known what those few things I missed were and addressed that, and just decide not to do it, you know. And nobody made me do it, you know what I mean, is the other thing.
Well, I'm curious, what were you were living, that house was, your parents were there?
Yes,
and they were like, okay.
They were really understanding about, like, you know, certain things and stuff, and it's like, ultimately it came down to like, you know, I was always really open and honest with them about everything going on with me. You know, they knew that I was kind of doing my thing, you know, and I never had like a falling out with them, like I like stole a bunch of stuff from their house to try to sell it for drugs, and then got like kicked out and then stuff like that. Like I never had that experience with my parents. So so we've been very heavily bonded my whole life, you know what I mean? And same with my sister.
There's stability there.
Yes,
in the family.
Definitely, yeah. Like I still call my mom to this day and check in and say I love you and I'm alive and I'm okay. And though I'm homeless, I'm not in as much danger as it might seem. You know? Yeah.
Well, speaking of, so what was that transition from being housed to unhoused?
So that started out in the city of Monroe. We had a house out there on Chain Lake Road, and it was myself, my mom, and my sister's dad, Chris. I pretty much consider him my dad. He's the only father figure I've ever had. Never met my biological dad, but yeah. So it just got to a point where everything was fine. I've always been one to hold down a job. I've been working since I was a late teenager. I used to get construction labor jobs off of Craigslist, no problem. Man, I've had a job after job after job. You know, I've had jobs for like 2 years at a time, same place. You know, really good. You know, sense of like, you know,
work ethic.
Understanding just understanding like, you know, how to survive and that it works, and being confident in the idea that I'm not out of options. You know what I mean? And so. Yeah, man. I've never really been one to be just like wandering and not know like what's available to me. So that's been awesome. That's helped with that kind of thing. But it just got to a point where it was like, though I was working and just staying a good, you know, family-oriented member of the family, the household, and paying rent and all that stuff. They just were like, you know, I was like 22, 23 at the time, and it was getting to a point where it was time for me to kind of move on, right? You know, and stuff. And so I'm like, you know, all right, but I've always been close to my mom, so it's like, and it was convenient for them to have me around because I was able to do things that was hard for them to do, like move heavy stuff and just help with anything, you know. It's like any time that you're, you know, older mother has like their son come move back in for, you know what I mean, come move in for a couple months because they're on hard times, and it's nice having them around, for sure. Anyway, so that was kind of our relationship, you know, and I was willing to help them out with anything they needed ever, and likewise, you know. And so, but with that being said, we were also very, very frugal with that as well. You know, we didn't really require a lot to be all right. And so they came to me one day and they were like, you know, we just we know you're able to hold it together and stuff, but like the life you live is just really like kind of fast paced for us to be a part of, necessarily for you to like be just, you know, because it's like it didn't matter how late I stayed up. I could be up all night till like 4 o'clock in the morning doing drugs and drinking liquor, and come 5:30 I'm showered, I'm sharp, I'm ready to hit the job, you know, and perform.
It sounds like
and
they're
not,
communicating to you,
but they're like still
us.
Even though it's like they're like it's affecting us, we're like we don't know, even though we haven't seen any problems yet. We just know what can and does happen commonly with that, and we're like, if you want to continue to, it wasn't even really about like the way I was. It was just like, yo, you know, you're 20 something years old, like it's time for you to move on. I'm like, okay, right on, like, you know what I mean? We've never had that talk before, you know what I mean? So it was like, I'm glad they did, right?
So where'd you go?
I was like, all right. It wasn't quite as easy to just up and move out though as you would think, you know. So like respectfully, I was like, all right. So I hit the road. And
like hit the road. Define hit the road.
Like with a smile on. I was like, okay, I get it, you know. And I packed up, and like I didn't have a plan, and they didn't really seem to care.
And you went where?
But I didn't care either. I was like, okay. So all my friends were homeless people, you know what I mean? And so like they camped out down the river, so that's where I went, you know. And Chris, Kelly's dad, gave me his old like army bag, and I just threw all the useful shit I could into it, and that I had, and hit the road, and went down to the river down there in Monroe, and hit the campsite. And I was homeless in the city of Monroe for about 2 years or so, and then ended up following my sister's lead and getting clean and sober, and then stayed in an Oxford house for close to 2 years. I was just 3 weeks shy of my 2-year sober anniversary, right? And so then what I did was I was working for a moving company, and one of my coworkers decided he was going to rent me a room in his apartment on Casino Road. And so at that point I had relapsed on weed and alcohol, right? And then my roommate, I didn't know he was crazy, and like took all kinds of different medications that he was deciding not to take, and then like smoking more weed to try to feel like he was like had power over it and stuff. And then it came to bite him in the rear end. And
but you went from the Oxford house to this other
place, right? That
gotcha.
I didn't know wasn't as stable as it was like leading on, right? And then all of a sudden he left one day and decided that he was out and he was done and he didn't want to do it anymore.
Do what?
Live in that place.
Oh, like
yeah.
And
I
he's
was
paying
like,
half the rent, and
yeah, he's renting me a room for $500.
And so
you know, and his rent's like probably like 11 or something, right? So he's got, you know, and so I'm like, damn. So I couldn't afford all the rent, so I had to leave too. And so what happened was I ended up staying with my parents for a couple weeks, right? I still had a car at this time and stuff. And so I ended up finding another apartment that was affordable for $500 a month on Edmonds Way, and it was beautiful. It was like having a duplex, but it was like a studio apartment sized duplex. You had a backyard fenced, right? You had a carport, right? You had like under carport like storage and stuff, right?
So you're like working, paying rent.
Yeah, man.
Right.
And then the company that I'm working for, right, took a crap, and we got a truck stuck in the snow, right, around like late October. So we had a meeting to kind of call it quits on scheduling any more jobs for a while because we just couldn't do it. And dude was struggling with his company, trying to salvage his company anyway, you know. And so I get this job at Edmonds Goodwill to try to compensate for that in the meantime. And the problem is I couldn't start work until I was vaccinated, right, for COVID. So the only vaccines that they were giving out at that time anywhere around was, I believe it was Moderna that I got, and it's a 2-part shot. So you go and get the first one, and then a week later you can get the second shot, right, second phase of the shot. So that was going to be, so that was 2 weeks until I could pay any rent at my new apartment, right? So problem is they don't consider you workable and vaccinated until 2 weeks after you've had your last shot, right?
Yeah, you gotta
so
wait.
That's 4 weeks until I'm going to be able to pay any rent. Now check this out. That is a job where you get paid like every like 2 weeks, right?
So 6 weeks.
So dude,
It's a gap, and it's a big gap of
well,
no
seven
income.
7 weeks actually, because it would be my first one. So you always have like, it's always like a 3 weeks when it's always it's your first
so there's
paycheck.
a gap of like no income.
Yeah, like almost 2 months right there. That there's no income. And so, but I'm like, they made a employee profile for me and got me all logged into the system. I had the job. I just had to make sure I could show the paperwork from the shots, and had that. But it just, I couldn't coordinate that with paying the rent on time. I couldn't get the money to compensate in the meantime. So I just had to walk away from the situation, and I was no stranger to being homeless. So. At that point, I was so stressed out. Yeah, I wasn't, you know what I mean? I had lived homeless in the streets for, multiple years before that.
So you're like,
at one point, I'm like, okay, So, and I was just so stressed out with all of it, just all the emotional, just pressure and from everything, trying to, you know what I mean? And all my friends were sober and stuff, and everybody's like, don't use, and I'm just like, God. I just want to like smoke some weed and like play some video games or something,
out, right?
Like once, you know what I mean? It's like how you feel when you've been abstinent that long, It's like, man, if I could just do that once, like that would be a substantial, like
some relief,
And it's like, who's going to think that's a bad idea that you talk to that's not in hardcore like recovery mode, you know what I mean? Which is the only people that I have around.
Depends on who you ask. Like
exactly.
Some people just be like, oh yeah, whatever.
Exactly. So that's how I ended up homeless again in the streets of Shoreline, pretty much, tip of Edmonds to Shoreline, and then eventually after about a year or so, migrated down this way and found the Aurora Commons. And now, after it's been 4 years that I've been out here, I just about a month ago got transitional housing. So now I'm like on that track where it's like, okay, now it's a little bit of a different ball game, because it's like I'm coming from a background where I know that I'm able to be stable and hold down working to pay for the place that I live at. I'm about to be able to get assistance having a place to stay, and then also potentially still be able to do things that, you know what I mean, that I want to do with my life. And it's not going to come down to whether or not there's not going to be any contingencies other than myself not breaking any rules at the place that I live at. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool.
Are you still in recovery?
No, I am not. Okay. Although I am wearing a recovery sweatshirt today, it's because
I just noticed.
I actually I talked to my sister about 2 weeks ago, and she said that my mom was going through some old stuff and had found an old bag of my clothes from the time when I lived in the Oxford house. Gotcha. And this was one of the clothing articles, and so she had brought my old stuff to me. Gotcha. So that's what I'm wearing.
Well, tell me about the Aurora Commons, like when you first came here, what it's been like.
Dude, it's been awesome. It's been a blessing. I swear, after the first day that I came down to this place, I've haven't missed a beat. I've been here every time ever since. The first day that I came here was on a Tuesday, I believe, and you guys were serving biscuits and gravy, which was awesome, because that's like one of my favorite things in the world. It's my favorite thing to cook, is like a breakfast skillet with like gravy, and and so and then coffee too was a big staple of mine always, so I was like, I love that. And then just the people though, it's like there's not quite as many people that hang out around here anymore, like in terms of like people being back here all the time. But when I first started coming here, there'd be like 15 or 20 people chilling right here, and it was a nice sense of community, you know what I mean? Like we had like a place to be at that we weren't necessarily not supposed to be at, you know what I'm saying? And so it's just it's been a nice experience to be able to come down here and feel comfortable and feel welcome, and all of the staff that service this place have been just amazing, you know what I mean? It's cool to walk into a place and not be treated like a serial number, just because it's free, or you need it, or you need the help, and stuff. And so it's
so
awesome.
Did the Commons help you get that place?
They did. Absolutely. I signed up for the housing advocacy team, and dude, within 2 weeks, it takes about 2 weeks to find out if you get approved or not. And then once you do, now see, it used to take a long time to try to get housing, especially like if you just call 211, like dude, it could take you a year or two, right? It took like 6 or 7 days, and I got transitional housing.
That's incredible.
It was very quick.
That's
so
really
I was like, this is awesome. Yeah.
From what I've heard too.
couldn't have been better.
I mean, congratulations.
Everybody that asks that I tell that I'm in a place now, I tell them that I got it through this place, and I tell them exactly how to do it. It's super easy, like I'm constantly referring people to try it.
Well, Darian, what's the next step? What do you want to do?
What do I want to do now?
What do you want to do now?
So this is what I want to do. I want to take the opportunity that I've been blessed with, and I want to. This is what I'm not quite sure of. I'm not sure if I want to necessarily work full time again at some point, because, I mean, looking at me, like, I'm not disabled, right? Really. But at the same time, it's like, they're giving people ABD payments for like chronic homelessness and stuff, you know what I mean? Which I get it, that's totally a real thing, that's legitimate, I experienced that shit too, like definitely. I've been homeless for 7 years, I get it. It's a real thing, but I also know people that have government housing that have like a $200 copay because they're not disabled and they work,
But,
and so I might want to do something more like that down the road,
Yeah, well, I hear a desire like I want to work. Maybe
I want to be self-sufficient and be able to have some stuff. Yeah. And still have that cushion and that assistance with my living place.
I mean, baby steps. I mean, it's just like one step at a time. You just got housing. How long ago?
Yeah. A month ago.
A month ago.
Yeah.
After 7 years of.
Yeah, dude.
That's. Yeah. Congratulations.
Back and forth. Yeah.
And
man.
And how? I mean, just how does it feel?
It feels wonderful. It feels absolutely amazing. Just to know that like, and that's part of what I meant like about like how I felt when I discovered this place was that's one of the things I found out about, and I'm like, I remember thinking ahead in terms of like, man, like visualizing like how that would be like, oh, that sounds nice, man, like to get some housing, like that'd be awesome. And then I did, and then it happened like that, and I'm like, oh shit, like now I have it, Like the first day that I walked into that place that I'm at, it's called the Gateway on 130th and Stone, and man, the first day I walked in, I was just like so excited. My sister actually like managed to bump into me that morning, just driving through, and picked me up because she said I didn't have a cell phone, but I gave them her number, and so she said, I was like, did they? I knew it was the day of, right? Probably like to come check, right? And I'm like, did they hit you up about the housing? And she goes, yes, we have to go right now. We only have 24 hours to respond. I was like, oh shit, okay.
You have 24 hours to respond, and if you don't respond, they can pull it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a phone.
Right.
If your sister wasn't there.
Exactly.
That's so wild.
That's exactly.
I mean, you have such a small window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I heard that you're supposed to get like, you got like 3 or 4 days or something like that, or like a week to respond to most of them. But for some reason, mine was 24 hours. I don't know why.
Find out.
But anyway. I found out it was 24 hours. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, all right, let's go. Yeah, so she drove me there and dropped me off, and I did the thing, and then as soon as that was about 9 o'clock in the morning, right? As soon as I did that, came right down here and told everybody that thank you for helping me get this place, because just got it. And then I actually saw the person that I forget her name, but the lady that advocated for me, and she's like, did you get in? And I was like, yeah, I went and did my intake and all that, and I'm in. So yeah, it was awesome to be able to have that moment too, and just kind of.
It's huge. That's huge. I mean, it's such an opportunity and such a opportunity.
Definitely. And my family, like my sister and my mom and her dad are stoked that I'm like finally just out of the streets, you know what I mean? And it's like, really, it's like the worry is like, they know that I'm not like facing like imminent danger like every day out here, but it's like, dude, there's people that get like clobbered to death in their sleep in the streets of Seattle while they're sleeping, you know what I mean? Like, you never know what can happen, It might be like a 1 out of 1,000 chance, but what if you're that one, And it's like, I'm sure that fear is in every parent's mind,
Well, I mean, it's traumatic living on the streets.
Just in general. Right.
Like you're experiencing, like you're in fight or flight probably a lot.
Yeah.
And
you get kind of numb to it after a while, and you get used to it.
And you probably can numb that in a way, cope with that. It's just like
you find ways to make it more practical and more like condition your mentality to be more prepared for it too as well.
But all that to say, you're indoors and you're at your place, that's gone.
Yeah, that worry
like
is
that
completely
is gone.
just gone.
Not even there.
That's a gigantic.
I can just totally imagine.
Oh yeah.
Darian, one last question before we wrap up.
All right.
Is there anything that you would want the people of Seattle to know?
I would just say this. I would like to say to the city of Seattle that I am very grateful that this is a sanctuary city. You know, it's always kind of remained a home for me, and I've always felt a sense of ease and a sense of comfort. Though I've traveled out of state, I've lived out of state for multiple years, and then came back. It's like I always come back. Like my family always comes back to this place, and it's because it's our home, you know. So, thank you, Seattle, for existing.
Right on. Thanks for your time, man. Yeah. Appreciate it. All right. Sweet. Yeah, man. That's cool.